I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sanlyn Buxner to do a quick introduction. So Dr. Buxner and I have worked together for quite a while in the world of science education, but she, by title, is an associate research professor in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Sociocultural Studies in the Department of Education. You might be wondering, why is someone from education here in Newburgh? Well, you're going to find out why shortly, but we obviously want to tell you more about telling your story. What you describe in terms of the impact of your research, the research itself, the impact of the research experience upon you and upon this institution is really important, and you're going to learn more about why that is shortly. But Dr. Buxner has a lot of experience in this area, which is why I asked her to come and speak to you about it. She's also a senior research scientist and communication specialist with the Arizona Planetary Institute, and she's been doing this for over 20 years, which is great. So Dr. Buxner is an educational researcher, and she investigates, still doing research, how science research experiences can be used to improve the knowledge and skills and empowerment of students as well as teachers. And some of you have actually met her before. She's our evaluator for the Aegis True program. She's on our advisory board for Aegis Rise, and she does a lot of work as well with other NSF and NIH grants. Definitely. So thank you for your patience in getting all of our tech difficulties figured out. Do you want to use this or the lapel? Okay, here you go. So thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thanks for hanging out with us. As Jen said, I do have a good connection. I actually used to teach 181, MCD 181, about 1 million years ago, so I've been here a long time. But what I do academically is I study people who do research. So I study folks like you who do research. I study a lot of scientists, graduate students, and things like that. And I work a lot with program officers. So I work a lot with the National Science Foundation, NASA, NIH, Gates Foundation, HHMI. And so part of what I'm talking to you about are directly experiences from talking to program officers, right? So if you're thinking, I want to go in and do this career in science, this would be a great thing. Now, from a very pragmatic perspective, we have a few things we're going to ask you to do today, which hopefully will be useful to you. But if you're looking forward to that science career, hopefully these things are foundational that will help you in the future. That's my email. I also have the Director of Graduate Studies over in my department. So if you ever find yourself wanting to go to graduate school in science education, you can always reach out to me. And so we're just going to talk about this idea of telling your story. So that's what we're here to do, is you're going to be thinking about how to tell your story. And so let's think about why that matters, other than helping your family be really proud of you, right? That's always good. But the most important thing is that science is a social enterprise. So as much as we want to say it's not social, it is a social enterprise. You are doing this within society. And so sharing your results really matters, because it matters both to society and your career. Right? So have you ever heard, if you don't publish it, it doesn't even exist, right? Has anyone ever said that to you? So if you have results and you don't publish them, no one knows about it. So if you're finding a great cure, if you're finding a great new thing, if you never tell anyone about it, at least in an article, right? It doesn't matter, you can't share it. We're talking about sharing it with society at large. And this kind of matters because a huge investment has been put into you and by you. So let's think about the investment into you. When we're thinking about it, everybody, right, when we are thinking about Newburgh, what is it, about $500,000? Is that about right? $500,000 gets invested by the federal government or private foundations into you, into your salary, your benefits, your lab space. That's a lot of money, right? And then you're putting in hours. And I've talked to you, right? So many of you, and I know some of you are putting in a lot of hours, maybe even more hours than you're reporting. So you're putting in this personal investment. So it's really important to kind of share that. And so when we talk about it, publishing is only some of the work you're going to do. We're talking about the not publishing. So how many of you have had a chance to publish your results or be on a paper with anyone yet? So a couple. That's really awesome, right? Hopefully in the future, you're going to get to be on conference presentations, give your own conference presentations. I'm going to come see you guys in February, I think, January at Newburgh. So very exciting stuff. We're going to talk about the other stuff you want to do that circles around that scientific writing. And so there's lots of ways this might get shared, right? These are not the Nature papers or the other types of things, right? We can talk about whether Twitter's still alive, but that's how a lot of people, right, like to share their results. There are blogs, there are podcasts, there are all sorts of things. We're going to have, like Jen said, we're going to have you do Padlet. But as you think about, again, your future as a scientist, right? What kind of presence do you want to have out in the world? Because, right, perhaps your personal Twitter or Facebook, right, might be a really great place, but maybe you want to start to build what you want to do. We have a lot of wonderful scientists who are able to share And as I talk to different program officers, like Facebook is for like old people like me, right? And you start to think about Instagram and other pieces about how you want to share. So what we want to talk about is how you share it and what you share. So it's appropriate and professional and relevant. Up front, here are the pieces, the 2 pieces that you want to be able to deliver that we're going to talk about. So next week, we're going to take time today to do this, so you might walk out of here and already be done with this. Okay? So the very first thing is you're going to have your Padlet. 75 words with a picture, title, and caption. That's our goal. Okay? That's due next Wednesday. So let's get some work done on that. It should definitely be looked at by your lab and or PI, just to make sure it's relevant. You haven't put something really secret in your picture, all those things, right? So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to have a letter to a funder. Now you may not know who your funder is, and we'll talk about this. This is actually on the website, but it's going to be a letter about you to a funder not yet determined yet. And we'll talk about what we want to put in that. And that's due on July 26th. If you do want to get feedback, we can work on that as well. So those are the 2 things that we're talking about today that are helping tell your story. I'll pause for a moment. Any questions? We'll get into the details. I just want to make sure that this is super clear. Okay, so let's just think about crafting the message again. We're going to think about what it is. So you're going to get to share and try this out with the people around you. Well, you really want to think about the 2 things, right? Really the 3 things. So number 1, what is it you want to share about you? Now remember, everything we put out there, you have to assume will be seen by everyone on earth potentially. So you don't want to put something that might be embarrassing to you or that you're not ready to share. But you want to do something that is about you, because personal is a lot better. So just going, I am an MCV student at the University of Arizona, is probably not personal enough for what we're looking at. So you might think about, what town are you from? Where did you go to high school, right? If you want to share if you're a 1st generation student or an 8th generation student, right? Are you a legacy? Are you doing what your parents did? Are you, right? There's all sorts of things. Are you the youngest child of 8? There's lots of things that you might want to share that talks about you. And you don't have to be unique from everyone else. It just should be about you. So what is it that you personally can share with your funder? That might be a little different. Your program officer is going to care. They care a lot about each of you individually, just so you know. I know that you may not know that, you're way down there, but they care about you. But what do you want to share publicly, and what do you want to share with your program officer? That is you. And then what do you want to highlight about your work? Hopefully, you are jazzed about your research, right? Do you have that elevator pitch? Somebody goes, hey, what are you doing this summer? Does anyone have an elevator pitch? Something they're willing to share right now? Doesn't have to be perfect. Like, what do you say when somebody goes, what are you doing this summer? Okay, thank you for being brave. What are you doing this summer?
So I've been working with my lab. We use transcranial magnetic simulation. So I've been learning how to use that equipment, and I get to look through like different data that we've collected in regards to how it helps, or how it could potentially be used as a preventative or therapeutic measure for AD.
What do you tell grandma now? Because you can't use some of those words, right? Grandma's not gonna know, so how do you tell grandma?
We use brain simulation techniques to study how they can impact brain function, like, and cognition.
Great, right? But that's what we want to do. We want to pull down your first one to the second one, right? Words that people can say. And if you are an NPR listener, right? They actually had a really great thing yesterday about, or maybe it was this morning, about presidential speeches, and they're saying most of what we want to do is at the 8th grade level, right? 8th grade reading, and we hear that a lot, but that's kind of what we're looking at, is targeting an 8th grade reading writing. Okay, so grandma's a great one. Your kid, if you have any siblings or if you have children, right? If they can understand it, it's a really great litmus for this. So think about that. Definitely in your Padlet. You want that level. So I loved that. Anyone else want to try one out? What are you doing this summer? You'll get to try it out. I know it's scary to talk in front of people, and I don't want to push on the spot. But we will be talking to each other, so. Yes?
I work on, so my mentor has discovered that there are bacteria that live inside of fungal roots. So we're learning about how they get in there and what they do.
Perfect. So learning about bacteria and fungal roots and what they're doing. And so what's the one thing that people might trip over if we're thinking about 8th grade? What's the one piece we're gonna wanna explain a little bit more about, do you think? Bacteria definitely might be a technical word, so we have to talk about that, and what's the other one? My 10-year-old will not know what fungal roots are, so you may have to say, such as, right? Give some examples. Those are great, but that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, so, you're special. Your research, hopefully you're jazzed. If you're not, tell it to someone else. Hopefully they can get you jazzed about it. And then what's the broader impact? Now that might be tethered, right? So for you, we're working to solve Alzheimer's dementia. That is so important, right? In bacteria and fungal roots, it might be about the ecosystem. It might be about our food, right? So just think about, how do you tell someone why my work is important? I think a lot of times many people are like, I do this really small thing. It's really hard to figure out why it's important. Let's try it out today, okay? But those are the 3 things you want to think about. Something about you, something about kind of your day-to-day, and then what are the broader impacts to your work. These slides, by the way, will get loaded so you have them. Nothing too magical. Okay. Pictures are great in your Padlet. We don't need them in the letter. So let's think about an appropriate picture. Here's a list and that we've been doing, right? So you want a picture that tells a story. So just a picture up close of your face is great, but it's not telling a story. So we want something that tells a story. But it absolutely can be done with your phone. In fact, most of your phones have better cameras right now than a lot of SLRs. So phones are fine. You know, being in your lab environment or a field environment is perfect, right? Depending on, so tell that story of where you are, what you work with, again, as long as it's not restricted. Yes, this is really important. It was even more important a couple years ago. Make sure you're wearing the correct PPE for the setting. If you should be wearing goggles, be wearing goggles. You should be wearing a coat, wear a coat. You should wear gloves, wear gloves. A year ago, we should have been wearing a mask, right? There's a lot of stuff, but please, you know, this is how we have to pull things down. Just make sure that even though you may have popped in for a picture, you're looking like you should be in that setting, and your PI is not going to be horrified to see that, right? So that's really good. You want to make sure you have a permission. Anyone who's working in a lab that is restricted, ITAR or other, ask. If your lab is completely restricted, be super creative. You can do something else, right? Go into somebody else's lab and see if you can get something that is somewhat alike what you're doing. It's totally fine to have an action shot of you, right? I have lots of ones of me digging up dirt to do samples. That's great. You can be looking at the camera. It can be with another person, it can be with a group. These are all fine things. What is not fine, and Quinn will be the person to tell you this, no artistic selfies. Like, just, this is not the place. There are lots of places for artistic selfies, including Twitter and places like that, but it's not gonna be on the Padlet, so. And then the last thing is put a caption on it. Who's there, what are you doing, where are you, right? Something to make sense of it, okay? So, picture, you got a week to figure it out. Questions about the picture, and does Padlet take more than one picture? Only one?
I think we're only requiring 1.
Yeah, but if you wanted to do, you could probably like merge them if you wanted to do like 2 side by side. Questions about the picture? Okay, I'll pretend like things are going great. Right.
Wait, one question?
Yeah, please.
So I'm leaving tomorrow. I don't really have a picture of me in lab yet. What would you like?
When are you coming back?
Tuesday the 18th.
Okay, well then, send it to me when you get back.
Okay.
Take when you get back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So like I'm in DSA, so I don't exactly have a lab. I just like work on my computer. So
So you have a couple of choices. So I do this a lot with documentaries, right? One is to have someone taking a picture behind, kind of you, if there's something, is there anything interesting that shows up on your screen?
maybe.
Maybe, so think about that, right? Like I do a lot of like spectral things, and so sometimes I'll kind of overlay a spectra of me like working at the computer. So you could have someone take a picture of you on your computer, or a picture of the spectra, that's totally fine. But I think that's very real, especially in our field, so. Any other questions? But great, I mean, great time to be thinking about that. Yeah.
Can you use a picture that's already been
for, it's not copyrighted, I think that's all. Okay, I saw maybe a hand over here. Okay, so as you're crafting your story today, let's be thinking about pictures you might want to use. Okay, this is the future assignment, but let's talk about it. So, letter to our funders. So remember, they have given somewhere, right, to your lab and things, upwards of probably, depending on how long you're going to be in that lab, $20,000 to $50,000, right? It's a lot of money. You don't see a lot of it. A lot of it goes into lab, a lot of it goes into overhead at the university, a lot of it goes into materials. Some of it comes to you as money, right? But remember that all of that is an investment into you, and it's really important. So, key pieces, okay? Again, personal details you feel like sharing. This might be more than you're going to share on a packet. Because again, this gets seen by much fewer people. It's in a much more professional setting. So often I find that individuals have a little bit more, they feel more comfortable sharing a little bit more about that. Details about your research in everyday language. Many of your program officers, right, again, they're very enthusiastic, they're really supportive, they're not going to know a lot of your technical terms. Now, sometimes it's really important to use those technical terms. You just need to explain them. If you're going to use any kind of acronyms, you need to spell them out, right? Do not assume that the individuals who are funding you that even have an undergraduate degree in biology, or chemistry, or biochemistry, or physiology, or any of the things you have. So just lay it out for them. But you can use some really cool language, right? Show all the great stuff you're doing. And then the big thing that they really care about, what is the impact of your experience on you personally and or professionally? Both is always great. Things like, this is the first time I ever got to do research and I learned this. Or, now this has opened a door so I can go to do this. These are all really important things. And sometimes it seems trivial, but imagine you're writing, if you want to go to grad school, that really awesome grad school application that you want to show off. It's kind of like that. You are showing off how awesome you are. And sometimes I find that's really uncomfortable. Talking about yourself is hard. A friend can help if you have trouble with that. But just talk about how awesome you are. And talk about how awesome this experience is. Right, so the way you can. Again, what's the potential impact of the research you're doing? So that's that broader impact. That's the, hey, how might this contribute? So I'm in with 8 other students, and 2 of us are going to grad school, and we're also hoping to cure ovarian cancer, right? Whatever that is. And then they always want to see plans for the future. And I will tell you, and Jen will tell you this, these are, when they're done well, are incredibly effective. Like, effective enough to get more funding, or effective enough to get you new positions, right? So the better story you are telling, the better letter you are crafting, it opens other doors. I have also found that these letters become really good for med school applications and grad school applications. So they are dual purposed in the sense that you're talking about the work you're doing in a way that, you know, goes. It goes without saying, I would have someone else read it and edit it with you. It's only a page, and we'll talk about that. But you want it to look really professional, and so I would have somebody else read it. Questions about this piece? How many are so excited? You're like, love to write. You're ready to write a whole page about yourself, right? It might feel a little daunting, right? Strategies. How do I get through this? Because like right now you should be thinking, I got 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to do this, maybe 3. What's a strategy to get through a somewhat daunting page letter I gotta get through? Yeah.
Break it down.
Oh.
Like, all those topics you could put in this, like make a topic sentence, paragraph, aligned with that.
Perfect. So just, cut and paste this into your own Word document and outline it. And go, these are the things I want to talk about. Okay? Anything else? Strategies. I'm assuming you're all still in school, so you have to think about this all the time, right? You're writing. Okay? Tell a friend. Get on the phone. Go, hey, I gotta write this letter. Can I try this out? So you just gotta try it out. Iterations are totally fine, right? And we can help you with those. Okay. Here's what's on the website where this presentation will be. So it tells you all the information you need to know. This is not for you to read, it's for you to know it's here. And so there's the part 1 and the part 2. The one thing to know, if you don't come back to this website, is you're not going to say who the funder is. You're going to make it a generic one, and then Jen and Clem will put who it's going to go to later. And so you will get that, but it does need to be in a Word document so it can be edited. Right now. That's the whole sum of me talking at you. I apologize for talking at you so much. Any questions before we actually start working on this? Okay, so we have a few minutes before we'll do questions. We would like you to actually make some progress on your messaging, on your Padlet. So if you want to start working on your Padlet, we're going to start working on it. You can use a piece of paper, I know, very old school, computer, phone, whatever you want, but go ahead and start sketching these things out, right? So it's like, what is the image? 75 words, is it? And we're going to have you share, but just go ahead and start working on it. You do not need to be silent. You can talk to the people around you and go, hey, does that seem cool? So let's start working